My son said, "Now my wife's parents will take your bedroom, pack your things and leave." I silently left and canceled all the payments. The next day, he wouldn't stop calling. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I had always believed that family meant something. For 68 years, I lived by that principle. My husband passed away 5 years ago, leaving me our modest 2-story house in the suburbs and a comfortable pension. I wasn't wealthy, but I was stable. When my son Robert called me 2 years ago, explaining that he and his wife Jessica were struggling with their mortgage, I didn't hesitate. What kind of mother would I be if I didn't help? They moved into my home temporarily. I gave them the master bedroom upstairs, thinking it would only be for a few months. I took the smaller guest room downstairs. I started covering their car payments when Robert's hours got cut. Then came their credit card bills. Just this once, Mom, I promise. Then Jessica's student loans, then groceries, then utilities. My pension checks began disappearing into their needs like water into sand. The first strange moment happened about 6 months ago. I overheard Jessica on the phone with her mother. "Yes, Mom, it's perfect here. The house is plenty big enough for you and Dad when you visit. Robert's mother barely uses any space anyway." I felt a cold finger trace down my spine. Robert's mother? I was standing right there. When I asked about it later, Jessica laughed it off. "Oh, Margaret, you misheard. I was talking about the guest room." But I hadn't misheard. The signs multiplied like shadows at sunset. Jessica started rearranging my furniture without asking. She replaced my grandmother's curtains with modern ones she ordered online, using my credit card. When I protested, Robert sighed. "Mom, can't you just be flexible? We're trying to make this place feel like home." Wasn't it already my home? They began having friends over, late into the night. Loud music, laughter. When I asked them to keep it down at midnight on a Wednesday, Jessica rolled her eyes. "You can barely hear it downstairs, Margaret." She'd stopped calling me Mom months ago. Then came the conversations that ended abruptly when I entered a room. The glances between them that I couldn't decode. Robert's increasing irritability whenever I mentioned bills or boundaries. "You're so controlling," he'd snap. This son I'd raised to be kind. The breaking point arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in October. I was folding laundry in my small downstairs room, my room, in my house, when Robert walked in without knocking. His face was set in hard lines I didn't recognize. "Mom, we need to talk," he said, not sitting down. Jessica appeared behind him in the doorway, arms crossed, a strange smile playing at her lips. "What is it, honey?" I asked, setting down one of his shirts that I'd washed and folded. "Jessica's parents are moving here from California. They need a place to stay while they look for a house." He paused and I waited for the question, the request for help. It didn't come. "They're going to take your bedroom." I blinked. "My bedroom? But I'm in the guest room. Do you mean—" "No." His voice was flat. "They need a bedroom on the main floor, your room. You'll need to figure something out." The world tilted. "Figure something out? Robert, this is my house." "Is it?" Jessica's voice was sharp. "Because we live here too. We've been contributing." "Contributing?" The word exploded from me. "I've paid your mortgage for 2 years, your car payments, your—" "And we're grateful," Robert interrupted, his tone suggesting he was anything but. "But things change. Jessica's parents need us. They're getting older. You're still healthy and independent. You can find an apartment or something." "An apartment?" My voice sounded small, distant. "You're telling me to leave my own home?" Jessica stepped forward. "Margaret, you're being dramatic. We're not kicking you out. We're just reorganizing. Family takes care of family, right?" The way she said it felt like mockery. I looked at my son, searching for the boy I'd raised, the man I'd helped through college, through his wedding, through every crisis. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Pack your things," he said quietly. "Jessica's parents arrive next week." How had it come to this? What had I done wrong? The questions swirled in my mind like a winter storm as I stood there, stunned, in the room I'd slept in for 5 years, in the house I'd lived in for 30. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. Not yet. I simply nodded and began to pack. That night, I sat in a cheap motel room off the highway, staring at my phone. The walls were thin enough to hear the couple arguing next door. The bedspread smelled of chemical cleaning products trying to mask something worse. This was my reality now. At 68 years old, I was homeless because my own son had chosen his in-laws over his mother. I couldn't stop shaking. Not from cold, but from something deeper. Rage, perhaps, or betrayal so profound it felt physical. I'd walked out of my house carrying 2 suitcases and my purse. Everything else, my photo albums, my husband's things, my grandmother's china, remained behind in what was no longer considered my home. But I wasn't just angry. I was calculating. I opened my laptop and began to document everything. Every bank statement from the past 2 years, every check I'd written to cover their bills, every automatic payment I'd set up. The numbers painted a devastating picture. In 24 months, I'd given them nearly $80,000. $80,000. My retirement savings had been cut in half. The mortgage on the house, my house, was in my name alone. My name was on the deed. My name was on the property tax bills. The utilities, the insurance, everything. Robert and Jessica had contributed exactly nothing legally binding. They were guests who'd overstayed their welcome and then decided to become owners. My hands trembled as I created a spreadsheet. Column A, expense. Column B, amount. Column C, date. Column D, proof. I had proof of everything. My husband had been an accountant, and he'd taught me well. Keep every receipt, every statement, every record. "Paper trails tell the truth when people won't," he used to say. Around 2 a.m, clarity struck like lightning. They'd made a crucial mistake. In their arrogance, in their assumption that I was just a weak old woman who would shuffle away quietly, they'd forgotten the basic truth. It was still my house. Legally, completely, irrevocably mine. I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. The auto payments glowed on the screen like accusatory eyes. Robert's car payment, $467 monthly. Jessica's student loan, $340 monthly. Their car insurance, $215 monthly. The credit card I'd added them to as authorized users, average monthly charges of $800. The phone bill, streaming services, even Jessica's gym membership. My finger hovered over cancel autopay. Was I really going to do this? Cut them off completely? A mother didn't abandon her child, even when that child had abandoned her. But then again, had I raised my son to throw his mother out on the street? Had I sacrificed and saved and supported him so that he could discard me like trash? I thought about my husband. What would David say? I could almost hear his voice. "Margaret, don't be a doormat. You taught Robert better than this. If he's choosing to behave this way, he needs to learn the consequences." I canceled every automatic payment, every single one. Each click felt like cutting a cord. The car payment, gone. The student loans, gone. The credit cards, gone. Insurance, phone, utilities, every bill I'd been covering. Click, click, click. Liberation felt like hitting delete. Then I went further. I called my credit card company and removed Robert and Jessica as authorized users, effective immediately. The customer service representative asked if I was sure 3 times. "Absolutely certain," I said, and my voice didn't shake. But canceling payments wasn't enough. I needed a real plan. I needed to understand my legal position. At 3 a.m., I drafted an email to a real estate attorney, whose name I found online, requesting an emergency consultation. I needed to know my rights. Could I legally evict them? What was the process? How long would it take? I also emailed a locksmith, asking about changing locks on a house where unwanted occupants had refused to leave. Was that legal? I needed to know every option. As dawn broke over the motel parking lot, painting the asphalt in shades of gray and pink, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Power. Not much, just a flicker, like a candle flame in a dark room. But it was there. They thought I was finished. They thought I would disappear quietly into some sad little apartment, grateful for whatever crumbs of contact they might throw me. They were wrong. My phone buzzed at 7:47 a.m. Robert's name flashed on the screen, then again at 7:48, at 7:49, at 7:50. Call after call after call. I watched the phone vibrate across the cheap motel nightstand, and I smiled. Let him wait. Let him wonder. For the first time in 2 years, I wasn't answering to anyone. The attorney's office smelled of leather and old books. Daniel Chen was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He'd agreed to see me that same morning after reading my email, calling it urgent and straightforward. "Mrs. Anderson," he said, spreading my documents across his mahogany desk, "you have an extremely strong case. This is your property. Your son and daughter-in-law are technically tenants at will, and since you've never collected rent, they have even fewer rights than typical tenants. So I can evict them?" Hope bloomed in my chest. "Yes, but there's a process. Colorado law requires written notice, 30 days for month-to-month tenancy. After that, if they refuse to leave, we file for formal eviction through the courts." He looked up at me. "It could take 2 to 3 months total. Can you afford to wait that long?" Could I? Every day they remained in my house. They were erasing me from it. But rushing would only create legal problems. "What's the fastest way to do this correctly?" "I'll draft the eviction notice today. We'll have it served by a process server tomorrow. That starts the clock." He paused. "Mrs. Anderson, I have to ask, are you prepared for this to get ugly?" "Family evictions often do." "It's already ugly," I said quietly. "They threw me out of my own home." "Then let's get started." By noon, I had a plan. Daniel would handle the eviction. I'd also filed a police report documenting that I'd been constructively evicted, forced out through threat and intimidation. The police officer who took my statement looked sympathetic. "Happens more than you'd think," she said sadly. "Elder abuse takes many forms. Elder abuse." The words hit me like ice water. Was that what this was? My phone had 37 missed calls from Robert, 23 text messages. I read them in the attorney's parking lot, watching the progression from confusion to anger to panic. "Mom, why isn't the car payment going through?" "Mom, we need to talk. Call me." "This is ridiculous. Call me back right now." "You're being incredibly childish. We didn't kick you out. We just needed space." "Jessica's crying. You're tearing this family apart." "Fine. If you want to play games, we can play games too." That last message arrived at 2 p.m., and it sent a chill through me. What did that mean? I called Daniel immediately. "Don't engage," he advised. "Don't answer calls. Don't respond to texts. All communication goes through me now. If they want to talk, they can talk to their lawyer, if they get one." That evening, I checked into a small extended-stay hotel, nothing fancy but clean and dignified. As I unpacked my 2 suitcases, my phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Margaret." Jessica's voice was pure poison. "We need to discuss this situation like adults." I have nothing to discuss with you. You're making a huge mistake. Robert is devastated. How can you do this to your own son?" Her voice shifted, became almost sweet. "We were just trying to help Jessica's parents. You took it completely the wrong way. You told me to pack my things and leave my house." "Your house?" Jessica laughed, sharp and bitter. "You mean the house where we've been living, maintaining, improving? The house where we've invested our time and energy? I think you'll find that legally. Legally, it's my name on the deed. Only my name." I kept my voice steady. "You'll be receiving official paperwork tomorrow." The silence stretched for 3 seconds. Then, "You're evicting us? Your own son?" Her voice rose to a shriek. "After everything we've done for you, letting you live with us, taking care of you. Letting me live in my own house? Taking care of me by spending my money?" The fury I'd been suppressing erupted. "I have every bank statement, Jessica, every receipt, every payment I made for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have proof of everything." Another silence, longer this time. When Jessica spoke again, her voice was cold. "You're going to regret this, Margaret. We have rights too. We'll fight this. And when we win, don't expect any relationship with your future grandchildren." The line went dead. I sat on the hotel bed, hands shaking again, but not from fear, from rage. Future grandchildren? She was already using hypothetical children as weapons? My laptop pinged. An email from Daniel Chen. "Process server will deliver notice at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll CC you on the delivery confirmation. Stay strong, Margaret. You're doing the right thing." Was I? Would a good mother do this to her son? But then, would a good son do what Robert had done to me? I looked at the photo on my phone's home screen. Robert at his college graduation. His arm around me. Both of us beaming. That young man seemed like a stranger now. Or perhaps I was the stranger, finally seeing clearly what he'd become. Tomorrow, they would receive the eviction notice. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. I'd spent my whole life avoiding conflict, keeping peace, being accommodating. Look where that had gotten me. No more. The process server delivered the notice at 9:07 a.m. I know because Robert called at 9:09, screaming so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You're evicting us? Your own son?" His voice cracked with rage. "What kind of mother are you?" I hung up. Daniel had been explicit. No engagement. Let the law handle it. But Robert and Jessica weren't planning to go quietly. At 11 a.m., I received an email from an attorney I'd never heard of, Marcus Patterson, apparently representing my son. The letter was filled with legal threats, claims that they'd been paying rent in cash, assertions that they'd made improvements to the property that entitled them to compensation, even a suggestion that I was mentally incompetent and that they'd been caring for me out of concern for my well-being. Every word was a lie. I forwarded it to Daniel, hands trembling. Within an hour, he called back. "Margaret, this is intimidation, nothing more. They have no proof because none of this is true. We'll respond formally, but I need you to stay calm. This is exactly what I warned you about. It's getting ugly." Can they really claim I'm mentally incompetent? They can claim anything. Proving it is another matter. Has a doctor ever diagnosed you with any cognitive issues? No, I'm perfectly healthy. Then this is an empty threat. But Margaret, he paused. Document everything, every interaction. Record calls if Colorado law allows it, which it does since we're a one-party consent state. Save every text, every email. If they're going to make false claims, we need evidence to counter them. That afternoon, Jessica showed up at my hotel. I watched from my window as she crossed the parking lot, her face set in grim determination. How did she even know where I was staying? She knocked on my door. I didn't answer. Margaret, I know you're in there. We need to talk. Her voice was reasonable, controlled. This has gone too far. Robert is having a breakdown. He's your son. Don't you care about him? I remained silent, heart pounding. Fine. Her voice hardened. You want to play hardball? Robert's been having health problems, stress-related. If anything happens to him, it's on you. His blood is on your hands. A pause. Also, we've documented everything. Every time you've been confused, forgetful, aggressive. We have witnesses who'll testify that you've been declining mentally for months. You'll never win this. Lies. All lies. But fear gripped me anyway. Could they really convince people I was incompetent? I called Daniel the moment her footsteps faded. They're trying to build a case that I'm mentally unfit. Then we'll get you evaluated, immediately. I know a geriatric psychiatrist who does competency evaluations. If you're willing, we can have documentation proving your mental fitness within a week. It'll cost about $1,500, but it'll destroy their entire argument. Do it. The evaluation happened 3 days later. Dr. Sarah Whitman was thorough. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, mental status examinations. 2 hours of questions and puzzles and assessments. At the end, she smiled. Mrs. Anderson, you're sharper than most 50-year-olds I evaluate. There is absolutely no evidence of cognitive decline. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sound, and you show no signs of any mental health issues beyond appropriate stress responses to a difficult situation. I nearly cried with relief, but Robert and Jessica weren't finished. They began a social media campaign. Jessica posted on Facebook about elder abuse, claiming that I'd abandoned my son, that I was refusing to help my struggling family, that I was cold and heartless. She twisted everything, making herself and Robert the victims. Some of our extended family began calling me, confused and concerned. I didn't respond publicly. Daniel advised against it. Don't engage on social media. Let them spin their narrative. When we get to court, facts will matter, not Facebook posts. Then came the text messages from Jessica's mother in California. I don't know what you've told Jessica, but threatening to make us homeless is despicable. We're selling our house to move there. If you ruin this for us, you'll regret it. They'd involved her parents without telling them the truth. Of course, the threats escalated. Robert left a voicemail claiming he'd sue me for financial elder abuse, for coercing him into letting me pay his bills. Jessica sent emails threatening to file for guardianship over me. Their attorney sent another letter, this one threatening a countersuit for unlawful eviction and emotional distress. Each threat was hollow, Daniel assured me, but they wore me down like waves against stone. 2 weeks after serving the eviction notice, I realized I was exhausted. The constant fighting, the threats, the stress, it was taking a physical toll. My blood pressure was up. I wasn't sleeping. I'd lost 8 pounds. Daniel noticed during our weekly meeting. Margaret, you need to take a break. Step back for a few days. The legal process moves slowly. Use that time to take care of yourself. He was right. I was running on fumes and fury. I turned off my phone for 3 days. I got a massage. I went to the botanical gardens and sat among the roses, letting the sun warm my face. I read a novel for the first time in months. I let myself simply breathe. When I turned my phone back on, there were 47 messages. I deleted them all without reading them. I was ready for whatever came next. The call came from an unexpected source. Robert's older sister, my daughter Linda. We'd been close once before she moved to Oregon 15 years ago. Life and distance had created a gap between us, but she was still my daughter. Mom, what the hell is going on? Linda's voice was sharp but concerned. Jessica called me crying, saying you've abandoned Robert and are trying to make them homeless. Is that true? I took a breath and told her everything. The truth. Every detail, every payment, every moment leading to that afternoon when my son told me to pack my things. Linda listened in silence. When I finished, she said quietly, "Oh, Mom, I had no idea. Jessica made it sound like you'd just lost it, like you'd become paranoid and unreasonable. That's what they're telling everyone. I believe you, Mom. I know Robert. I love him, but I also know he can be weak. If Jessica's pushing him, he'll follow. He always does." She paused. "What do you need?" That simple question brought tears to my eyes. What did I need? Support. Just support. Everyone else seems to believe their version. "Not everyone," Linda said firmly. "I'll start making calls. Aunt Catherine, Cousin Tom, the family who actually knows you, will get the truth out there." True to her word, Linda became my advocate. She called family members, explained the situation, sent them copies of my bank statements showing the money I'd paid. Slowly, the tide began to shift. Aunt Catherine called to express her outrage. Cousin Tom offered to drive down and talk some sense into Robert. Even my sister-in-law from my late husband's side reached out. David would be ashamed of Robert right now. The family support felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. But Robert and Jessica weren't done trying to manipulate me. 5 days after my deliberate rest period, a letter arrived at my hotel. Not from their attorney, from Robert himself. Handwritten, which made it feel more intimate, more personal. "Dear Mom, I've had time to think about everything that's happened. You're right. We were wrong to ask you to leave. I was wrong to let Jessica pressure me into treating you that way. You're my mother, and I love you. Can we please talk? No lawyers, no fighting, just you and me. I miss you. This has torn our family apart, and I want to fix it. Please, Mom, give me a chance to make this right. Your son, Robert." My first instinct was to call him immediately. This was what I'd wanted, wasn't it? An acknowledgement, an apology, a bridge back to my son? But something felt off. The timing was too convenient, coming just as my attorney had filed the formal eviction lawsuit in court. I read the letter again, more carefully this time. No lawyers, no fighting. They wanted me to negotiate without legal protection. They wanted me vulnerable, emotional, making decisions from my heart instead of my head. I called Daniel. "What do you think?" "I think it's a trap," he said bluntly. "Margaret, in 3 weeks we have our first court date. They're panicking. If they can get you to drop the eviction in exchange for vague promises, they win. You'll be right back where you started, except with even less legal standing." But what if he means it? What if Robert really does want to apologize? Then he can apologize after the eviction is complete. If his remorse is genuine, it'll still be genuine in 6 weeks. If it's manipulation, you'll have lost your leverage. He paused. "What does your gut say?" My gut said Robert had never once acknowledged being wrong about anything in his adult life. My gut said Jessica would never allow him to genuinely apologize. My gut said this was exactly what it looked like. A manipulation attempt. "I won't respond," I said finally. "Good. Let me respond on your behalf, professionally, firmly." 2 days later, another attempt came. This time, Jessica herself appeared at my hotel again, but she brought backup. Her mother, Patricia, apparently fresh from California. I watched from my window as they stood by my door. "Margaret, please," Patricia called out. "I've flown all this way. Can't we just talk, woman to woman, mother to mother? Jessica tells me there's been a terrible misunderstanding." I remained silent. "We're selling everything to move here," Patricia continued, her voice rising. "Our house in California, our whole life. Jessica promised us we could stay with them while we look for a place. You're ruining everything because of some petty family squabble. Petty squabble? They'd reduced my eviction from my own home to a petty squabble. I still didn't answer. After 15 minutes, they left. Through my window, I watched Patricia and Jessica argue in the parking lot, their body language sharp and angry. Good. Let them fight among themselves. That evening, I met Linda for dinner at a small Italian restaurant. She'd flown in to support me, taking vacation time from her nursing job. Over pasta and wine, she held my hand across the table. "Mom, I'm proud of you," she said. "I know this is killing you. I know you want to forgive Robert and fix everything. But you're standing up for yourself. That takes real strength." "I don't feel strong," I admitted. "I feel like a terrible mother." "You're not. Robert is being a terrible son. There's a difference." She squeezed my hand. "Don't let them wear you down. You've come too far." She was right. I had come too far. When I returned to my hotel that night, there was another envelope under my door. Inside, photos of Robert as a child, pictures of family holidays, memories designed to tug at my heartstrings. No note, just images of happier times. I looked at them for a long moment. Robert's gap-toothed smile at age 7, his high school graduation, his wedding day. Then I filed them away in my suitcase and called Daniel. "They tried to guilt-trip me with photos." He sighed. "Classic manipulation. How are you holding up?" "I'm fine," I said, and I meant it. "I'm ready for court." The knock came at 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I'd been awake for hours, unable to sleep, reviewing documents for the court hearing scheduled for the following Wednesday. Through the peephole, I saw Robert and Jessica, both dressed nicely, carrying what looked like a bakery box and flowers. My heart lurched. They looked so normal, so much like the family I'd once hoped we could be. I opened the door just a crack, leaving the chain lock engaged. "What do you want?" "Mom, please." Robert's eyes were red as though he'd been crying. "Can we come in? We brought your favorite, blueberry muffins from Sunrise Bakery, and flowers, peace offerings." Every instinct screamed danger, but I was curious. What was their play? I removed the chain and let them in, positioning myself near the door so I could leave if necessary. My phone was in my pocket, recording. Daniel had told me to record everything. Jessica sat on the edge of my bed, arranging the flowers in the cheap plastic cup from the bathroom. She looked softer somehow, vulnerable. "Margaret, we've done a lot of thinking this past month." "We were wrong," Robert jumped in. "I was wrong. The way we treated you was unacceptable. I've been terrible to my own mother." His voice cracked convincingly. "I don't know what happened to me. Jessica and I got so caught up in our own problems that we forgot what you've done for us." "We want to fix this," Jessica added, her voice gentle, reasonable. "Before it goes too far. Before lawyers and courts destroy our family forever." I sat in the room's single chair, arms crossed. "What exactly are you proposing?" "Come home," Robert said simply. "Come back to the house. We'll work it out. Jessica's parents can stay in the guest room instead. You can have your old room back. We'll start contributing financially. Really contributing. We'll pay rent." "How much rent?" I kept my voice neutral. Jessica and Robert exchanged a glance. $500 a month?" Jessica offered. "That seems fair, doesn't it? And we'll cover our own bills going forward. $500 a month for a house with a mortgage of $2,800. For utilities averaging $300. For property taxes, insurance, maintenance. They were proposing to contribute roughly 15% of the actual costs while acting like it was generous. "And the $80,000 I've already spent on you?" I asked quietly. Robert waved a hand dismissively. "Mom, that was you choosing to help us. We never asked you to pay for everything." "You absolutely did ask. We asked for temporary help," Jessica said, her voice sharpening slightly, before she caught herself and softened it again. You were the one who insisted on covering everything. We were grateful, but we never forced you. I could see the manipulation now, clear as glass. They were rewriting history, making my generosity into my fault. And the $500, it was just enough to make them look reasonable to outsiders while keeping them financially comfortable at my expense. What about the eviction lawsuit? I asked. Drop it, Robert said immediately. We'll sign something saying we'll pay rent, and you drop the eviction. We start over. Fresh slate. Fresh slate, I repeated slowly. So all the money I've spent, all the ways you've treated me, that just disappears? Mom, we're trying to move forward, Robert said, frustration creeping into his voice. Why do you have to keep dwelling on the past? Can't you just forgive and forget? I can forgive, I said quietly, but I don't forget, and I don't trust you. Jessica's mask slipped. You don't trust us? We're your family. We're trying to make this right, and you're throwing it back in our faces because you're too stubborn and bitter to... She caught herself, but too late. Too stubborn and bitter to what? I stood up. To let you keep using me? To keep paying your bills while you treat my home like it's yours? It practically is ours, Jessica snapped, standing as well. We've been living there for 2 years. We've made it our home. Just because your name is on some piece of paper doesn't mean you own everything. Actually, that's exactly what it means. My voice was ice cold. That piece of paper is called a deed, and it means I own the house. Not you, not Robert. Me. Robert moved between us, his face flushing red. Mom, Jessica didn't mean... Yes, she did. I looked at my son, really looked at him. This was never about reconciliation, was it? This was about getting me to drop the lawsuit. Making me feel guilty enough to let you stay without any real consequences. We came here in good faith. Jessica's voice rose. We brought muffins. We're offering to pay rent. What more do you want from us? I want my house back. I want you out. You ungrateful. Jessica caught herself again, breathing hard. Do you know what we've sacrificed for you? Living with you, dealing with your moods, your demands, your constant presence in our marriage. We gave up our privacy, our space, our freedom to take care of you. Take care of me? I laughed, a sound without humor. You spent my money, took my home, and threw me out. That's not caregiving. That's exploitation. Robert's face was scarlet now. You know what, Mom? Fine. We tried. We came here to be the bigger people, to extend an olive branch, and you spit on it. Don't expect us to try again. I won't, I said. And don't expect to ever meet your grandchildren, Jessica added venomously. You want to be alone? You want to destroy this family? Fine. But you'll die alone, and Robert and I will tell our kids that their grandmother was a selfish, bitter old woman who chose money over family. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. But I didn't let it show. Get out of my hotel room. They left, Jessica slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood in the silence they left behind, shaking, but standing. Through the window, I watched them argue violently in the parking lot. Jessica was gesturing wildly, screaming something at Robert, who looked defeated and small. I sat down on the bed and let myself shake. Let myself feel the fear. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being alone. Afraid I'd destroyed my relationship with my son forever. Afraid I was making a terrible mistake. But beneath the fear was something else. Certainty. I'd seen their true faces now, stripped of pretense. Jessica's rage, Robert's weakness, their willingness to manipulate and threaten. This wasn't family. This was a toxic relationship I needed to escape. I called Daniel, my voice steady. They just tried to get me to drop the lawsuit in exchange for a promise to pay $500 a month in rent. Did you record it? Every word. Excellent. That actually strengthens our case. It shows their bad faith. See you in court Wednesday? See you in court. After I hung up, I ate one of the blueberry muffins they'd brought. It tasted like victory. The courtroom was smaller than I expected, wood-paneled and formal, smelling of old paper and furniture polish. I sat beside Daniel at the plaintiff's table, my hands folded calmly in my lap. Across the aisle, Robert and Jessica sat with Marcus Patterson, their attorney. Jessica wore a conservative dress and pearls, playing the part of the respectable daughter-in-law. Robert looked haggard, dark circles under his eyes. Good. Judge Patricia Morrison entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that suggested she'd heard every story and believed none until proven. This is the matter of Anderson versus Anderson and Collins, case number 2024, CV 3847. Let's proceed. Daniel stood. Your Honor, this is a straightforward unlawful detainer case. My client, Margaret Anderson, owns the property at 1847 Oakmont Drive. The defendants, Robert Anderson and Jessica Collins, have been residing there without paying rent. Mrs. Anderson properly served a 30-day notice to quit. The defendants have refused to vacate. We're asking the court to order their immediate eviction. Marcus Patterson stood, his voice smooth. Your Honor, this is not a simple eviction. This is a family matter involving elderly abuse, manipulation, and a mother's attempt to illegally dispossess her son from what has become his family home. Mr. Patterson, does your client have any legal right to the property? Is his name on the deed, the mortgage, any ownership documents? No, Your Honor, but then we start with the premise that this is Mrs. Anderson's property. You may proceed with your defense, but the burden is on you to demonstrate why your clients should not be evicted from property they don't own. I watched Patterson's confidence waver slightly. Your Honor, we intend to prove that Mrs. Anderson has been mentally incompetent, that she coerced the defendants into accepting financial assistance and then used that assistance as leverage to maintain control over them. Judge Morrison looked at me, studying. Mrs. Anderson, do you suffer from any mental health conditions? I stood. No, Your Honor. I had a complete psychiatric evaluation performed by Dr. Sarah Whitman 3 weeks ago specifically to address these claims. I have documentation. Daniel handed the report to the bailiff, who delivered it to the judge. She scanned it quickly. This shows no cognitive impairment whatsoever. Mr. Patterson, do you have any medical evidence to support your claims? We have testimony from witnesses about her erratic behavior, Your Honor. I'll hear it. Call your first witness. Patterson called Jessica. She took the stand, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Your Honor, I love Margaret. She's been like a mother to me. But over the past year, we've watched her decline. She became forgetful, paranoid. She'd accuse us of stealing from her when we'd done nothing wrong. She'd forget conversations we'd had. We were genuinely worried about her. Ms. Collins, Judge Morrison interrupted, if you were so concerned about Mrs. Anderson's mental health, did you seek medical intervention? Take her to a doctor? Contact Adult Protective Services? Jessica blinked. We tried to encourage her to see someone, but she refused. And yet you continued to live in her house and allow her to pay your bills? We were trying to help her. We stayed because we were worried about her living alone. While spending her money on your car payments, student loans, and credit cards? The judge's voice was dry. How altruistic. Daniel stood. Your Honor, I'd like to enter into evidence bank statements showing over $80,000 in payments made by Mrs. Anderson on behalf of the defendants over a 2-year period. Also, a recording from 6 days ago where the defendants attempted to manipulate Mrs. Anderson into dropping this lawsuit. He played the recording. In the silent courtroom, Jessica's voice rang out clearly. Just because your name is on some piece of paper doesn't mean you own everything. And later, you'll die alone And Robert and I will tell our kids that their grandmother was a selfish, bitter old woman who chose money over family. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. That's enough. Mr. Patterson, does your client have anything to say that actually provides a legal defense to this eviction? Robert took the stand, his lawyer's desperate last attempt. Your Honor, she's my mother. She offered to help us. We didn't force her to do anything. Now she's angry about some misunderstanding, and she's using her ownership of the house to punish us, to destroy our family. Mr. Anderson, the judge said, her voice cold. Did you or did you not tell your mother to pack her belongings and leave her own house because your in-laws needed her room? Robert hesitated. It wasn't like that exactly. We just needed to reorganize. It's a yes or no question. Yes, but... And did you or did you not contribute financially to the mortgage, utilities, or property taxes on this house? We contributed in other ways. We maintained... Yes or no, Mr. Anderson? No, not directly, but Mom offered. Mr. Anderson, your mother didn't offer to be displaced from her own home. She didn't offer to have you threaten her with isolation from future grandchildren. I've heard enough. Judge Morrison turned to Jessica and Robert, her expression severe. You two have engaged in what I can only describe as financial elder abuse, followed by constructive eviction of the property owner. The fact that Mrs. Anderson is your mother makes this worse, not better. Jessica started to speak, but the judge held up her hand. I don't want to hear it, Ms. Collins. Your recording speaks for itself. Judge Morrison looked at her notes, then delivered her ruling. I find in favor of the plaintiff, Margaret Anderson. The defendants are ordered to vacate the property at 1847 Oakmont Drive within 7 days. If they fail to do so, the sheriff will remove them and their belongings. Furthermore, Mrs. Anderson is awarded court costs and attorney fees. She paused, looking directly at Robert. Young man, I suggest you spend some time reflecting on how you've treated the woman who gave you life. Dismissed. The gavel struck, final and absolute. I watched Robert and Jessica's faces as the reality sank in. Jessica's carefully constructed composure shattered. She turned on Robert, her voice a harsh whisper I could hear across the courtroom. This is your fault. You said she'd never actually follow through. You said we could manipulate her. Robert looked broken, staring at his hands. Marcus Patterson gathered his papers quickly, clearly wanting to escape. I'll be in touch about the appeal process. Don't bother, Jessica snapped. This was a waste of money. As they filed out of the courtroom, Jessica shot me a look of pure hatred. Robert wouldn't meet my eyes. Outside in the hallway, Daniel shook my hand. That went even better than expected. 7 days is fast. Usually it's 30. Judge Morrison clearly saw through their entire act. It's really over? I couldn't quite believe it. The eviction is ordered. Barring an appeal, which they won't win, you'll have your house back by next week. I nodded, feeling a strange mix of triumph and sadness. I'd won. But I'd also lost my son, perhaps forever. Linda appeared from where she'd been waiting in the gallery, wrapping me in a hug. You did it, Mom. You actually did it. I did, I said softly. And despite everything, I smiled. 7 days later, I stood on the porch of my house, watching as the sheriff's deputies supervised Robert and Jessica's departure. They'd waited until the last possible moment, perhaps hoping for a miracle that never came. Now, movers were carrying furniture and boxes out to a rental truck in the driveway. The house looked worse than I remembered. In the 8 weeks since they'd kicked me out, they'd let it deteriorate. The lawn was overgrown, the flower beds choked with weeds. Inside, I could see through the open door. Holes in the walls where they'd hung heavy pictures without proper anchors, carpet stains, damage to the hardwood floors in the kitchen. They'd taken their anger out on my home. Jessica emerged carrying a lamp I'd given them as a housewarming gift years ago. When she saw me standing there, her face twisted with rage. Enjoying your victory, Margaret? Hope it keeps you warm at night. The house will keep me warm, I replied calmly. You should have thought about that before trying to steal it. We didn't steal anything. You gave us everything, and now you want it back because you're a bitter, vindictive old woman. Jessica's voice carried across the lawn, drawing looks from neighbors. A sheriff's deputy stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to finish loading and vacate the premises. You have 2 hours remaining. Robert appeared then, looking utterly defeated. He'd lost weight, his clothes hanging loosely. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something that might have been regret, or maybe just self-pity. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it and looked away. Robert, I said quietly. He stopped. I gave you everything because I loved you. I would have continued giving you everything if you'd just shown me basic respect. This didn't have to happen. Then drop the lawsuit for costs, he said, his voice hollow. You got the house back. Isn't that enough? Do you have to destroy us completely? I'm not destroying you. I'm holding you accountable. I kept my voice steady. The court awarded me those costs because what you did was wrong. You'll pay them, slowly, if necessary. But you'll pay them. Jessica pushed past him. We'll see about that. Good luck collecting from people with nothing. We'll declare bankruptcy if we have to. You won't see a penny. Then you won't see a penny either, I said. But at least I'll have my home. The next 2 hours were tense. I waited in my car, watching as they loaded their belongings. Daniel had advised me not to enter the house until they were completely gone, and the sheriff had confirmed it. They might try something desperate, he'd warned. At 4:47 p.m., the deputy knocked on my car window. Property is clear, Mrs. Anderson. Here are your keys. He handed me my own house keys, which they'd been forced to surrender. I should warn you. There's damage inside. You might want to document it for insurance purposes and potential further legal action. I walked through my house like a stranger. The damage was extensive. They'd taken most of the light fixtures, leaving exposed wiring and holes in the ceilings. They'd stripped the master bedroom of everything, including the curtain rods, leaving gouges in the walls. In the kitchen, they'd removed the refrigerator, the one I'd bought before they moved in, and taken it with them. In the living room, they'd left trash bags full of garbage, a final insult. But they'd left something else too. My photo albums, my grandmother's china, my husband's things, all piled in the corner of what had been my downstairs bedroom. They could have destroyed these precious items, but they'd left them intact. Perhaps Robert had insisted. Perhaps some tiny part of my son still existed under Jessica's influence. I photographed every instance of damage, every missing fixture, every gouged wall. Daniel would add it to the financial claim. That night, I slept in my own house for the first time in 2 months, in a sleeping bag on the floor of my old bedroom, surrounded by boxes and damage, with no functioning kitchen and only minimal electricity. And I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, Linda arrived with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. Mom, this place is trashed. It's still mine, I said, and it's still home. We spent the next week cleaning and beginning repairs. Friends from my church group came to help. People I hadn't realized cared so much until I needed them. They scrubbed floors, patched walls, brought casseroles and company. The house slowly transformed back into a home. The bill for repairs came to $18,000. I added it to the judgment against Robert and Jessica. 2 weeks after the eviction, I received a letter from Marcus Patterson's office. They were withdrawing as counsel because Robert and Jessica couldn't pay their legal bills. The letter included a forwarding address for my son, a cheap apartment complex in the worst part of town. I felt no satisfaction in their suffering, but I felt no guilt either. A month after that, Jessica's mother, Patricia, called me. Margaret, I don't know what happened between you and the kids, but we're in a terrible situation. We sold our house in California based on Jessica's promises. Now we're living in a cramped apartment with them, and Jessica says it's your fault. Is that true? I explained everything, calmly, factually, with documentation. Patricia was silent for a long time. Then, oh God, Jessica lied to us about everything. She said you'd gone senile and were dangerous. She said the house was basically theirs anyway. We gave up everything based on her lies. I'm sorry for your situation, I said, and meant it. But it's not my fault. I know that now. Patricia's voice was bitter. We're stuck here with no home to go back to and a daughter who used us as pawns in her schemes. She's not who we thought she was. The call ended. I never heard from Patricia again. My life slowly returned to normal. Better than normal, actually. Without the constant drain of Robert and Jessica's expenses, my finances recovered. I redecorated on my own terms. I joined a book club and a gardening group. I found peace in my own space. Robert tried to call me once, 6 weeks after the eviction. I let it go to voicemail. Mom, I'm sorry. I know it's too late, but I need you to know I'm sorry. Jessica and things are bad. We're struggling. I miss you. I didn't call back. If he wanted a relationship, he could start by paying the court judgment. He never called again. 6 months after the eviction, my life had transformed into something I'd never expected. Genuine happiness. I woke up each morning in my own bedroom and felt grateful. The garden bloomed under my care. Linda visited monthly. I joined a book club, volunteered at the library, took watercolor classes. Without Robert and Jessica draining my resources, my pension covered everything comfortably, with enough left over for small luxuries. I was 70 now, and I felt younger than I had at 68. But I heard things through the family grapevine about Robert and Jessica. Their cars were repossessed, their credit destroyed. They lived in a rundown apartment where police sirens were nightly background noise. Jessica lost her job and ended up at a call center making $11 an hour. Robert developed an ulcer from stress. Jessica's parents cut off contact and moved to Arizona after 3 months of living with them. The court judgment remained unpaid. I didn't care about the money anymore. It served as a permanent record of what they'd done. I ran into Jessica once at the grocery store. She looked terrible, unwashed, exhausted. Satisfied? She asked bitterly. Look at what you did. You did this to yourself, I replied calmly, placing fresh roses in my cart. Looking back now, I understand the most important lesson. Love without boundaries is not love. It's self-destruction. I'd spent 68 years believing that good mothers sacrifice everything. I was wrong. Good mothers teach respect, responsibility, and consequences. On my 70th birthday, Linda threw me a party. 40 friends came. That night, cleaning up in my beautiful kitchen, I felt grateful. Robert and Jessica had tried to take everything from me. Instead, they'd given me a gift. Freedom. What would you have done in my place? Would you have fought back or quietly disappeared? Remember, you are never too old to reclaim your life. Thank you for listening to my story.